Hey, everybody, this is Joseph Park, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the interactive interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com.
So what you gonna do?
Let me talk to you, dummies.
Oh, yeah.
You're where it's at.
If you're smart like me, you gotta listen.
And if you don't listen to it,
I'll come out of your computer and body slam your ass.
don't be a Melvin.
I will scar you.
Open your third eye.
Woo! It's gonna be cool. Oh, what a rush.
It's showtime!
We had a lovely conversation.
To the interactive interview. Interactive Wrestling Radio.
The Epicenter.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Interactive Wrestling Radio right here on WrestlingEpicenter.com. It's a 2-for-1 special this week. My name is James Walsh, by the way, and joining me on the Newsmaker line is I guess I can call him my co-host. It's kind of like my talking to buddy.
I like that title.
Mr. Patrick Kelly.
Yeah, I want that to be my official title on the what? Yeah.
You know, way off topic, and this is what we always do, but you know what I saw the other day at the toy section at Target?
What?
Teddy Ruxpin.
Are you shitting me?
I am not shitting you. I'm serious.
Oh my God.
So, that thing is frightening.
Oh, it was frightening when I was a child. Like, I remember thinking, that thing looks like it's going to murder us all in our sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. But by the way, if you want to know how I got to that, it's because I said talking to Buddy, and then I started thinking about teddy bears, and then that's how I ended up at Teddy Ruxpin. That's my thought process. Going from a wrestling intro to Teddy Ruxpin. Anyway, yeah, no, that was always freaky.
Dream with me tonight.
What used to freak me out, though, is that the tape would reach the point of the story where he wouldn't be talking.
Uh-huh.
And his mouth would still be moving. And that really, when I was a kid, freaked me out because it's like the mouth is still going, the eyes are still blinking, and there's nothing coming out. There's no noise. So it's like, at some point, it's going to go, I will destroy you and everyone you love. Anyway, so I said,
time.
They were. Everything was excess. Everything was better. Everything was better. But on this episode, it's James Walsh, Patrick Kelly, and we're going to be joined by two guests. We're going to air this same intro for both guests because why not? We have from Impact Wrestling the recently re-signed Monster Abyss, and from Ring of Honor, from the Kingdom of Ring of Honor, it is TK O'Ryan. So two really cool interviews with two very, very interesting, both very intelligent guys. So I think you guys will enjoy these interviews. We just were talking off air. Abyss might be the last of the originals for Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, they just celebrated their 16th anniversary, and I'm thinking going all the way back to that first show, like, who is still there both in front of the camera and behind the scenes that was there on that original show? And I think Abyss might be the only one.
He might be the last of the Mohicans. Yeah, he might be the last one. Last man standing.
JB's not even there anymore.
No, JB went to WWE, and a lot of people, you know, and Conan said this, and it's true. A lot of people saw that as a really bad sign when Jeremy Borash went to WWE. But, you know, look at what they did. And I want to give them credit. And I'm saying this not to blow smoke, not just because they might be listening, but because I mean this. Look at what they've accomplished. Impact Wrestling for years was going through atrophy. When Hogan left, when AJ left, when they lost some of the mainstays, as well as some of the big names, Sting left. When they lost all those guys, a lot of people said they were dead to rights, and then they had the struggle with the TV deal. They ended up on Destination America, which to this day, if you put it on, you can still see rednecks chasing ghosts. I never understood that choice. But then again, you get something like Ring Warriors, this new company called Ring Warriors, and they get a WGN America TV deal. That's unbelievable. How'd that happen? But that's way off topic. And then they got Pop TV, and they've been back building ever since the sale of the company to Anthem. And I think everything that they've been building towards and growing towards and all the changes they made kind of came into a culmination this past Sunday, or a week ago Sunday now, at Slammiversary, in what has to be the most critically acclaimed pay-per-view they've done in 10 years.
Oh, I would even, it's the first time in a long time that they've put on a show where the feedback is almost unanimously positive. I haven't heard or read too many negative reviews of this pay-per-view. Take that for what it's worth as far as what do a bunch of, critics and nerds on the internet, what do their opinion really matters. I know I'm throwing us into that mix, but it's really amazing that after everything they went through and after all the strife, all the trouble, all the snake bites and everything that company has gone through, that they've persevered, they've got a new creative system in place, and they're finally on a path that they're getting back to having an identity and putting on fun and exciting shows.
I look forward to Impact every week, and I always watched, and I want everybody to know this. Even though, I'm singing their praises now about how great the show is, I always watched, even when it was not the greatest show, even when it was, for example, James Storm throwing Mickey James off a railway bridge and stuff like that. Not the best stuff that I've ever seen. I always watched Impact because I always saw that there was great potential there, and now they're realizing a lot of that potential. So I'm so excited for Impact Wrestling to be getting the respect that they deserve and to be back on a footing where people are, even as much as 6 months ago when they were in Canada just after Bound for Glory, a story broke that they were hiring actors to be in the audience to get the desired crowd reaction that they were after. And the news headlines, I will never forget this, were something along the lines of, hey, how much do you have to be paid to go see Impact? And I thought, that's a real jerk comment to make, right? I guarantee you those same people.
Was it true? Was it even true? I'd never heard the story.
That was the story, that they had hired actors. And I'll tell you why, because they wanted people to react a certain way to stories. That's what I always assumed it was anyway. And, you have trouble with that with Impact crowds back then. And now you don't, because now they're really getting into it. So, bottom line, though, I'm kind of off topic here. Those same people who are saying, oh, how much do you have to pay to watch Impact, blah, probably shelled out $50 to watch Slammiversary.
That all comes around. But, now I've watched a lot of wrestling this year, and I've watched a lot of different companies. I've kind of moved away from Raw and SmackDown and kind of focused on the shows that I enjoy week to week. And, New Japan has put on some great shows. Wrestle Kingdom was great. Dominion was great. The NXT TakeOver specials are typically very good. But for the first time in a long time, I could count the Impact pay-per-view among the best pay-per-views of the year so far. And again, like you said, it's been a long time since I've been able to say something like that.
Yeah, I mean, they had a good show a few months ago with Redemption. That was really good. That kind of was the precursor to what we saw as Slammiversary. But this one was like from top to bottom. It was like, okay, we have built-up match after built-up match after built-up match. No match was just thrown in, and all of them delivered. So
yeah, and there was also that, again, going back into this company's history, it felt like if something wasn't blowing up in their face, they would kind of get in their own way by booking something stupid. And that didn't happen on the show. It's like they just went out there and said, hey, let's just deliver the best show possible and not throw the banana peel in front of ourselves. And sure enough, you end up with a great show.
So I got a question to ask. If you did end up with a great show, it was somewhere between a classic TNA show and a late-era ECW show. And a lot of people hear late-era ECW and they think, oh, he's implying it's not in good shape and all that. ECW was never in bad shape. They had an owner who had his nose up the crevasse of the WWE, and that's the truth. Even Tommy Dreamer said so. And an owner who had no concept of running a business. They were still selling out everywhere, but they didn't know how to make money off the fact that they were selling out everywhere. And that takes a true idiot.
Well, the thing they say about Paul, he's a creative genius, not a financial genius. So,
well, there you go. Exactly. That's exactly true.
The skills are not transferable.
Very cool. My only crass question of the pre-show here. A lot of people online are comparing Tessa Blanchard physically to China. And I'm not seeing that as much as everybody else seems to be seeing that. Kind of wanted to get your take on that. What do you think? Does she have a China build to you?
No, she looks like a woman to me. So, I mean, I think Tessa's pretty hot. But
Thank you. Oh yeah. I mean, I think definitely. I think she's.
granted, I like dark-haired women, so I'm kind of biased anyway. But I was like, nah, she looks good. I mean, she's very muscular, but I think she looks like a woman, and a very attractive woman at that.
I agree. She's physically fit. She's definitely got an athletic build. But when I hear China, I don't necessarily think of the China from the adult films or China from
when she was
maybe
in Playboy.
the late era. Yeah, I don't think of those things. I think of the China that, was the man beast that was shaking around Terry Runnels.
Wasn't there a rumor going around that was obviously false, but wasn't there one of those wrestling stories where she was like Sergeant Slaughter's niece or something?
Yeah, that wasn't true.
I know it wasn't true, but wasn't that a thing that was passed around?
That was a thing. It's because of her jawline. She had a very similar jawline to Sergeant Slaughter, if you really compare them to pictures. But that's just happenstance.
Well, it's like that old story where the original Ultimate Warrior died, and when he came back at WrestleMania 8, there was a new guy playing the role.
Right. That was that was believed by a lot of kids on schoolyards for years.
Because he had like different hair, he wasn't as bulky as he used to be. So yeah.
Yeah, and if you actually read like the old Hasbro action figures, the back of the first one that came out in like 1990 said that he was 6'5", and then the one that came out like when Purple Trunks that came out in like late 92 said he was 6'2", said he was 6'2", and you're like, oh, well he's shorter now, so it must be a different guy.
Or they just stopped working you. Because as they say, take a wrestler's height, subtract maybe a couple maybe 1 or 2 inches, or in Hogan's case, maybe like 4, and you got his true height.
Yeah, I mean, they always said Hogan was 6'8", but he's really like 6'5". So.
Well, the story I always tell, go back and watch Rocky 3, they say he's 7 feet tall, and it's like, no, Stallone's just really short. that's
he
why
came up to his
7
nipple,
feet tall.
for God's sakes.
Say what?
He came up to his nipple in that movie.
Yep, sure did.
It was kind of weird, but I do like the fact that Stallone still tweets about that and puts over Hogan. That's really cool to see.
Oh, Stallone, he knows where his bread and butter is. And it's like Rocky and Rambo, man. That's where it's what he's known for.
Yeah, I mean, if they ever do another Expendables, and I don't know if that's in the works or not, I wouldn't mind seeing a little love sent Hogan's way.
I doubt they'll make another, but then again, you never know. But you never know. They could do another Expendables, I guess.
It's not like it takes a great storyline.
Fair point. Nobody's expecting Citizen Kane.
No, they're not. And in the last one, if you saw the last one, some of the lines Stallone could have used subtitles because I didn't understand what the hell he said.
I didn't see the third one. The last one I saw was I saw the second one, which had Jean-Claude Van Damme as the villain, and they named him Jean Valjean. I'm like, that's beautiful. I kind of love that.
The next one he feuds with Mel Gibson.
Oh, nice.
So that's Mel Gibson's the bad guy. He's the bastard international businessman that they end up with a big, huge fight in a building.
And
pretty
Ronda
cool.
Rousey's in that one, too, right?
Yeah, Ronda Rousey's in it. Not a big fan of Ronda
Rousey. You sounded so excited.
I just don't get it. It's like Brock Lesnar. I just never understood the appeal. With Rousey, it's kind of like, hey, she's an unattractive female Ken Shamrock. I don't get it.
To her credit, she's probably the best thing on the main roster right now, in that she's the only thing that hasn't been hampered by bad writing.
Okay, so what you just said reminded me of something that happened to me. I'm going to tell you this.
Okay.
I used to be a big fan of the WCW Live show, which was essentially a podcast before there was podcasts.
Right.
They were 5 days a week. They were pre-Nitro and post-Nitro. And post-Nitro was always the What'd You Think show. So WCW had a show in 2000, February 14th, Valentine's Day. WWE was WWE was not on. I forget what it was, tennis or something. I don't know. Maybe the dog show. I don't know what it was. Remember when they used to get by the Kennel Show on USA? They used to get bumped for
that was always so weird to me. It's like, who is there like a shared audience between WWE and dog shows?
No shared audience. I think they just legitimately did not think wrestling was worthy, so they replaced it with everything possible. In their defense, or in WWE's defense, WCW encountered much of the same crap when they were replaced by, NASCAR racing. And I'm not talking like big races. I'm talking about like races that don't matter.
Listen to Eric Bischoff's podcast. I hate to plug another show unless it's something good.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with the guys who
were
there and did it. When it comes to the guys doing shows like Eric Bischoff and Tony Schiavone and Bruce Pritchard, for God's sakes, we're not competition for them. They're the guys we'd love to interview. So, I don't mind plugging their shows. It's the shows that I'm in direct competition with that I have a problem with. But these guys, they're not our competition. They're guys I'd love to talk to, too.
Yeah, Bischoff, his is really interesting because he goes more into the production and the television side of things, more so than what a lot of other shows do, where it's all about the in-ring and the creative side. Bischoff focuses a lot on, like I said, TV production and the business side, and he brings that up a lot, where it's like the Turner execs, with the exception apparently of Ted Turner and nobody else, they all just look down and turn their noses down to pro wrestling. So it's something that they've always had to deal with.
Brad Siegel's a piece of garbage. If you want to stretch it out, why does WCW not exist anymore? Because Brad Siegel didn't want it to. But that's another.
Mm-hmm.
We can get into that, and if I ever talk to Eric Bischoff in ad nauseum on a really long interview, we've had him on the website for an interview with Pile Driver in the past. But
yeah, I remember that. I was still in college when we did that interview.
That's back in 2006.
Yep.
Anyway, my point was, they did the show. It was the February 14th show, unopposed. And what did they put in the matches? They put Hogan and Flair. And I think it was Luger and I forget who. And the main event was Sid and Scott Hall.
Okay.
And we were talking, and it wasn't a bad show. And it sounds better to say now than it did when it happened. To say that, though, I called up and I said, well, Hogan and Flair was probably the best thing on the show. And Bob Ryder, who, as far as I know, still works for Impact Wrestling, who's one of the guys who helped found it, said, and what does that say about this show? Bob Ryder was not a big fan of that episode. And what you said about Ronda Rousey being the best thing on the main roster for WWE right now, what does that say about the main roster right now? That's all I got to say.
Oh, it doesn't say much at all. There's a reason I'm not watching week to week, because it's just I just can't get into it anymore. A lot of it is just there's too much content to fill week to week for them. I mean, it's 5 hours a week. Guys get overexposed. I get sick of their stories. I get sick of like everything that they're doing. So it was just better for me to just walk away.
Absolutely. Well, another product we both like is Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
And we have a guy from Ring of Honor who is a rising star, had that horrific leg injury at the 15th anniversary pay-per-view where he shattered his leg. Unfortunately, that probably is his biggest claim to fame at the moment, but I guarantee you that won't be his claim to fame in a few years from now, because this guy has got some real potential. I got to tell you, I asked to interview him because I saw a spark there, especially when he did the episode with the gauntlet, with the trios matches. He was on commentary, and he was killing it. He was a lot of fun on commentary. So I asked, hey, could I interview TK O'Ryan? And they said, sure. And, man, he's got a personality. He's a hell of an athlete. He's got a look to him. It might be overshadowed right now because Matt Taven is the king of the kingdom, but I could foresee down the road, if they ever do the classic way that any team ever splits by turning them against one another, I could easily see Taven and TK having one hell of a feud. They got a lot of talent in that ring right there.
Well, it's funny you mentioned
Vinny
that.
Vinny Marseglia is no slouch either, by the way.
Oh yeah, his balloon gimmick got over really big at the show I was at. But It's funny you mentioned this about the Kingdom. You know, Matt Taven is the king right now and kind of getting the spotlight there. That was not the case when he was in the original version of the Kingdom, where it was more Adam Cole and Mike Bennett getting most of the attention. So it's almost like the Kingdom, you know, they don't get the same attention that, say, the Bullet Club does, but they've got this nice little system going where they can cycle guys in and out. It's like, all right, the two bigger ones left, and then we can put Matt Taven in charge, and now he's rubbing off on these other two guys, and they're growing and developing into something special. So they got a nice little system there.
They do, and you know, I've not been shy about the fact that I think Matt Taven is awesome. I think he's absolutely phenomenal. I think he's just now starting to really get the attention of everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody else is now starting to say, hey, this guy is real good. This guy is really good.
Hey, if you want to see him do really well, that four-way match, he's in there with Jay Lethal, former ROH champion. He's in there with Cody, who's probably the biggest American star outside of the WWE right now. And the current champion, Dalton Castle. He didn't look out of place in there.
No, he did not. And I'll tell you what, he stole the show with one spot. And you know I like these little nuances that kind of make me go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
There's one spot where he has somebody rolled up. Forgive me, I don't remember who he had rolled up. And the referee was distracted. And playing to the conspiracy theory, by the time the referee turned, after he had him pinned for probably a 10 count, and the guy kicked out at 2, the way he stuck his hands out, had the look on his face, and stomped around like it was a conspiracy, and it got across just so easily, I was marking out. I thought, that is perfect. You could not have played that any better. That is what makes wrestling wrestling. That's what I love about it.
It's always the little nuances that make things better. You know, you can go out there and do shooting star presses. You can go out there and be the greatest mat wrestler in the world, but you got to be able to connect with the audience. That's what matters the most. And it's those little things like that that really set things apart from everything else.
Absolutely. And if you ask Cody Rhodes to this day, what's the best wrestling match of all time, he'll tell you Hogan and Rock. And he says he doesn't trust anybody who says anything else.
Really? That's first of all, that's a great answer. Because I love that match too. Because that is just master puppet work from, at that time, probably the two guys in the business that could do something like that.
Yeah. I mean, and there's talk that, oh, well, Hogan's back, he's going to work Cena. And I said, well, Cena's not The Rock. And Hogan's also not the Hogan he was even in 2002. So I'd be worried about that, but we'll see.
No, they're not going to do that match. I don't think so. If anything, they're probably going to do Cena Taker again at SummerSlam, which, okay.
Boy, I can't wait. Can't wait. You had by the way, I mentioned this to Abyss, and we're going to wrap up here, guys, and get us to the interviews. But I mentioned this with Abyss. I'll put you over here. You said WWE did a pay-per-view just a few weeks before Slammiversary called Extreme Rules, and there was pretty much nothing extreme on it. And then Slammiversary hits, and it's like, holy crap. So look what they were able to accomplish. You got, by the way, the two companies we're talking about coming up real soon. In fact, Impact Wrestling is doing the press conference this week with two guys that are going to be taking on the Young Bucks on the Chris Jericho Cruise, Impact versus Ring of Honor. It's going to be LAX, Ortiz and Santana against the Young Bucks. So that's pretty darn cool.
That's very cool. I kind of want to get on that cruise.
I'm sure it'll probably be on Honor Club or something. They got to have it on somewhere.
Oh, sure, yeah. But it's still a cruise, so you got to black out time and get the time off from work, and be willing to fork over some dough because cruises aren't cheap.
Over $1,000, I think it was over $1,000 to get on there.
Mm-hmm. But it sounds like it's worth the price. So, but yeah, going back to Slammiversary and the Extreme Rules deal, that Pentagon Sami Callihan match, I feel like I've seen just about everything in wrestling. That match made me cringe, and I loved it. It was one of the best hardcore matches I've seen in years, and it legit gave me the willies.
And speaking of facial reactions, even though the language barrier is a problem for me, the facial reaction of Pentagon when he kicked out of that move on the chair.
Mm-hmm.
When Sami kicked out of that move on the chair and Pentagon had the open mouth, shocked look on his face.
Yep.
That probably made the match. Again, little nuances, but it probably made the match.
I think, and I love him from Lucha Underground as well. I think Pentagon is one of the best foreign stars out there in the U.S. market right now. He looks like a star. And, you talk about the language barrier. I think both Lucha Underground and Impact have found a great way to get around that. Just subtitle his promos.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite the same, but it is. They've done a good job with it.
Yeah.
And he works for MLW as well. Let's give them a little love. They don't give us very much in response, but he does work for MLW as well. And they had a big show. In fact, they just ran, I think it's the same venue that Impact's running for Bound for Glory. They just ran for Battle Riot. So there you go. They're doing pretty well themselves. There's a lot of great stuff out there.
Yeah, funny you mentioned that. I might be going to another Ring of Honor show in October, and I'm toying around with the idea of going to Bound for Glory as well. So we shall see.
Yeah, I've been to a Bound for Glory. I went in 2012. It was a highlight for me. I loved it. It was the only time, even though I've been to a dozen, it has to be at least a dozen MSG shows, I, for whatever reason, always missed Hogan. So it was the only time I ever saw Hogan was at Bound for Glory 2012. And to say I marked out a time and a half would be an understatement.
That's cool, man.
All right, guys. Well, we talked about a little bit of everything here. So whatever your poison is, if you're here for Abyss, if you're here for TK Orion, or if you're here for nothing but a good time, poison reference. Hope you guys enjoy the interviews. And thank you again for joining me here, Patrick. I hope you enjoyed our little chat.
Oh, I did, man. Anytime you want to do this, I'm on board.
This is the king of the kingdom, Matt Taven. And don't be a Melvin and get into the Wrestling Epicenter.
Available now in the archives of InteractiveWrestlingRadio.com and WrestlingEpicenter.com. It's our exclusive, critically acclaimed interview with Rosemary, including when she had high praise for the Monster Abyss.
One of our immediate favorites that kept us watching TNA when we first started watching was the Monster Abyss. And somebody we very much adored watching him on TV and watching his work and watching his character. So, to be brought in now, 2016, into Impact Wrestling, and to be paired with somebody that we adored so much and looked up to and considered a hero, perhaps, somebody that we very much loved watching his work, and being partnered with him is an absolute dream come true. To not mince words.
Be sure and check out the archives of InteractiveWrestlingRadio.com and the Wrestling Epicenter, featuring our interview archives dating back to 2002.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is Father James Mitchell from NWA TNA Total Nonstop Action, and you are listening to the Interactive Interview.
Welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio right here on WrestlingEpicenter.com, as we are being joined once again by the Monster Abyss. Abyss, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I am. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Good, real good.
All right. So news broke last week that you had re-signed, opted to stay with Impact Wrestling. What made you decide to stick around and keep your tradition going with Impact Wrestling?
It was a pretty easy decision for me. I love the company, and I've been a part of it for, going on 17 years, since the beginning. So it was a pretty easy decision for me, and was able to put together a nice package to continue my duties with Impact as a wrestler and an agent and producer. So I'm really excited about that, to stay on board and to continue to contribute to the team and in the ring, and also helping the young talent and getting them to where we want them to be and need them to be.
Awesome. I love to hear that you're going to be staying in the ring. That was actually my next question was it seemed like maybe you were transitioning yourself a little bit away from the ring. Can we expect to maybe see you stepping in the squared circle a little bit more?
Yeah, you'll see. I think you'll see Abyss. I think you'll see Abyss at the right times, and so forth. Obviously, a large part of my duties will be backstage, producing and agenting and so forth, which I've been doing for the last couple of years as well. But I'll be in the ring as well. You'll see the Monster Abyss, and probably I would guess his esteemed brother Joseph Park here and there as well. So it's you'll see a little bit of both in the ring and an awful lot backstage as well. So I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. And we're coming off just a week ago, yesterday, probably the most critically acclaimed Impact Wrestling broadcast we've seen in quite some time with Slammiversary. It was universally accepted as one of the best things you guys have put on and probably the pay-per-view of the year. Thoughts on what you guys were able to achieve with Slammiversary?
Oh yeah, you nailed it on the head, man. I've been here since the beginning, and I've been here for some really good times and some really not good times. And that pay-per-view last Sunday at Slammiversary was the most positive thing that we've had in a long time. And it was so great to see it and hear it. Even critics that were really, really hard on us over the years really were excited about Slammiversary. So, I think we were, as a company, we're thrilled about it. We certainly don't want to rest on our laurels. We feel like we're onto something. We feel like we're really turning the corner and getting the company back on the right track and basically want to take that momentum that we've built in Slammiversary and move it on to October for Bound for Glory as well in New York. And so I think there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of positivity going around just because, like I said, and you said, it was just such a well-received, great event. And you got to credit the guys and girls, from Impact. They really went out there and tore it down and left it in the ring. And it was a great night. And I think it was a great platform for us to continue to improve as a company.
Very cool. And my buddy made a great point to me. I'll run this by you and see what you think of this. That the week before Slammiversary, WWE ran an event called Extreme Rules, and there was pretty much nothing extreme on it. And if you saw Slammiversary, it was a lot of extreme stuff. I mean, you guys really kind of hammered home a point that it's going to be tough for any other wrestling company to touch what you guys did there.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think in a lot of ways, we're starting to find our niche as a company and doing some things that other companies, won't do. And I think that, the feeling is that's going to make us a little bit different and so forth. And, as long as we're smart about it, which I think we were at Slammiversary, I think we really presented our unique way, our unique brand of a pay-per-view event. And I think that's something that wrestling fans, the wrestling audience craves still, and I think we're giving it to them. And I'm excited. I'm really excited about moving forward and where we're going to go in October and so forth.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to it too. I've been a fan of yours for many years. I mentioned before that I first saw you, I honestly first saw you at the first TNA pay-per-view, but I did see you back in Puerto Rico and all that. Really have been watching you for a long time, and for that reason, I wanted to bring this up to you. We did an interview with Rosemary that caught a little bit of fire earlier this year. It really did well. Even Impact posted it on ImpactWrestling.com. Very huge compliment to us. During that interview, she said that you're one of the reasons she decided to become a wrestler, and I thought that was such a cool compliment to throw back your way. What does it mean to you to hear some of these guys and girls that are younger that say that, hey, you're one of the reasons we decided to do this?
Oh man, it's flattering, to say the least. I mean, I don't know of a bigger compliment that a young piece of talent could pay to a veteran than to say that and to mean that. And I know Rosemary means that. She's told me that before. And that means I just can't tell you what it means to me. I've had a great career, man. I've had a very blessed career. I've been wrestling 23 years, 17 of it in TNA and Impact, and I've been fortunate enough to cross an awful lot off my bucket list. I've been in the ring with a lot of different guys and shared the ring with a lot of guys that I grew up idling, from Roddy Piper to Mick Foley to Hulk Hogan and
Right.
and Sting, and so I've been able to cross a lot of my bucket list, and I've had a very, very, very good career. I have zero regrets. I've been so blessed with it. And now it's time to give back, and that's what I feel really strongly about, and every piece of talent. As you get older, you should give back and help turn around and help that next person up onto that hill, and that's where my head's at. I'm still going to be active in the ring, and you'll still see Abyss, but my big thing is I want to give back, and I want to help these young guys and young girls, attain their dreams, attain their goals, and also at the same time, get them to where they need to be for the company, for them to be, over with the company and over with the fans, and to enjoy long careers like I've been fortunate enough to enjoy. So giving back is a lot, and to hear compliments like that, like I said, that just, there's no bigger compliment than that. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. And speaking of giving back, Abyss has been on Impact Wrestling in the past 6 months. You were in the Monsters Ball match with Kongo Kong, and you kind of gave him the nickname of the new monster of Impact Wrestling. It's a heck of a match that you had there. Thoughts on that match with Kongo Kong and that program, and might we see you resurface and try to get back your get back at Mr. Kong?
Yeah. I'm sure that's something you could see. You never know. Stay tuned. I really enjoyed that program with Kongo Kong. Again, it's just going back to the last thing we just talked about. Helping. Somebody new. And Kongo Kong's been on the scene for a long time on the Indies. I'd always liked him. I always thought he had, that for a big man, he could move and he was agile and stuff. So to do that program and to help him kind of get launched, was a big honor for me as well. And the program itself did great. It was a nice build. You saw almost 10 weeks of building to finally get to Abyss versus him. So, and it showed in the ratings. I mean, it did a very good rating. It did one of our highest ratings of the year. The match is over 3 million views already on YouTube. So we, it was just a good piece of wrestling business. We really told a great story with it. To reintroduce Abyss into it, and at the same time kind of get Kongo Kong launched and off and running. So it accomplished every goal we wanted, and it was very enjoyable, very enjoyable.
So here's an interesting comment that I got about a year ago when I interviewed a guy you've wrestled in another company. His name was Punishment Martinez.
Yeah.
And he said you're a big influence on him as well, but he said that he often wonders if you were starting right now, what the reception would be to your wrestling style versus having the back catalog that you have and having the veteran approach that you have now. If you, as your athletic, I guess what I'm trying to say is not jumping over the top rope as much as some of the guys now do, like you see Brian Cage doing. What is your take on where wrestling has gone with the crazy athletics and the almost acrobatics versus the hardcore stylings?
Well, it's definitely a change, I mean, gosh, when I broke in 95, and now you look at those years, the Attitude Era was coming. The Attitude Era was just starting. ECW was still in a fairly prominent position. And that was kind of the thing, man. If you remember, it was Sabu and Rob Van Dam and Sabu and Jerry Lynn and just the hardcore style and the grittier presentation and so forth. And the business just changed an awful lot. It is a lot more of an athletic, truly athletic contest now when you see some of the amazing stuff that these guys and girls are doing, compared to when I started. So it definitely has evolved and it's definitely changed. I think the whole business has changed. I think 10 or 15 years ago, you never would have seen AJ Styles as the WWE World Champion.
Right.
That's a mindset that has completely changed. And believe me, not because of AJ, but I don't think that 10, 15 years ago that that the feeling was you could have a champion that was 6'2", 220 or 225, and that's completely changed, because of the in-ring style. So, I think it's changed in a positive way. Sometimes I think, looking at some of the stuff nowadays, I do think selling is something that is less focused on. I'll say it as nicely as I can. I think selling is less focused on than it has been over the years, and I don't think that's a good thing. I think the high flying, the acrobatics, and all that stuff is amazing as long as the strong element of selling is still incorporated into it. But overall, I think I would have done well still. I think I would have definitely had hurdles, in this style compared to when it was when I started. Like I said, it's changed and it should change. Every business, everything's going to evolve and change, and wrestling's no different. And, the one thing I do think wrestling is missing when it comes to me, I think wrestling does miss characters. I really do. And Abyss is a character, I think the one thing I think the business needs to really be careful of, in the pitfall that it doesn't fall into, is it's going completely away from characters. When I got addicted to this business when I was a kid, it was the characters, man, that drew me in. And if you look back in the day, in the 80s and even the early 90s, and everybody, even the mid-card, even the opening guys had characters. And I fear sometimes that it's gone too much athletic contest versus no character. And I think that's something the business needs to be careful of.
Absolutely. I completely and wholeheartedly agree with that. All right, so you mentioned that everything evolves, and the pretty cool thing about wrestling right now is that instead of it being us against them all the time, it seems like there's an open arms approach. You guys working with Lucha Underground, you're working with AML, I believe, this weekend. You guys working with a lot of different wrestling promotions. Thoughts on how everybody's now working together instead of it being a dog-eat-dog world out there?
That's a cool thing, man. To me, that's the most groundbreaking thing and evolution of the wrestling business that may go down in history that's ever happening. And, 5-10 years ago, you would never hear companies working together. You wouldn't have heard of Ring of Honor working with Impact, or Lucha Underground working with Impact, or AAA working with Impact. It's something that it's a really cool evolution. And I think it was common sense all these years. It was common sense for companies to work together, but I think a lot of egos got in the way over the years, and now we can't work with them, or we can't work with them. And I think those walls have come down an awful lot. You're seeing it with Impact. We worked with AML yesterday, and we worked with Lucha Underground back at Mania, and we're going to do the Jericho cruise, with ROH. And so, those walls are coming down rapidly, and I think that's huge, man. The wrestling fans are the winners in that one, man, because, they're going to get to see their companies work with other companies, and they're going to get to see the matches that they never thought they would see, of Lucha Underground versus Impact, for example. And so I think the wrestling fans are the ones that are really going to win, and I think the companies are really going to flourish over it. Working together, I think, is going to breed nothing but more competition and be profitable for everybody.
Very cool. All right, we're coming close to time, so I'll ask you two more questions to wrap up. A guy that you and I are both huge fans of is Hulk Hogan. You got a chance to work with him. Recently reinstated to WWE. Do you have any thoughts on Hulk getting another shot at WWE?
I'm thrilled about it. I'm so happy for him. I know how much it means to him to be back in the Hall of Fame. I got to know Hulk really well when he was with Impact Wrestling. We got along really well. We became close and became friends and still talk. And a lot of the things I think that happened were unfortunate. A lot of things that happened were not good. And I think that he truly, was apologetic. I think he truly feels sorry about it, and I think he's taken his rightful place back in WWE Hall of Fame and in wrestling history. And I think that means more to him than anything in the world. To be part of the WWE family again, I think is something that was extremely important to him, and I'm really happy for him and glad that he's back where he belongs.
Very cool. Kind of a cream puff final question for you. Heading forward with Impact Wrestling, what can we expect to see?
Impact Wrestling, I'll tell you what, you can continue to see the great stuff that we produced at Slammiversary. I think the company's on a roll. I think we're really poised to go into October at Bound for Glory strong. I think our roster is as strong as it's ever been, top to bottom, in the last several years. I really believe that, and I think we have some of the best young talent in the business right now. I really do believe that, and I think the company's really poised to do some great things for the rest of this year and carry it into 2019. I think we're going to have the ship fully turned around in the right direction, and like I said, we're excited about it. I think the wrestling fans are excited about it. So stay tuned. I think it's going to be a great year.
I agree. Can't wait to see what Impact Wrestling can pull forward. Hey, just a quick thing, a bone to pick with your brother. I noticed that during a backstage segment with Grado, you kind of made a joke about the 3,000 podcasts that the boys all love. So I want to thank you for joining one of those podcasts here today.
That was Joseph Park's little shoot on the podcast industry.
Well, what didn't go unnoticed, but in brought a chuckle.
Offense,
I chuckled
no
at that.
offense. You're one of the good guys. You're one of the good ones.